Welcome to PowerUp podcast, the podcast that seeks to empower and dismantle, giving us the power and confidence to question, deconstruct, rebuild, and expand in life. I'm your host, Amma Rouge, voiceover and multidisciplinary artist, well-being advocate, food and book geek with over 14 years of movement-centered experience.
I am your host, Mesma, artist, choreographer, yogi and coach with a passion for alchemy, creativity, transformation and workplace wellness.
We recognise that we can't dismantle and empower or be empowered without first learning ourselves, diving deeper to unlearn the harmful, restrictive and unprogressive. It's an ongoing practice and journey for us all, which is why we created this podcast.
Our show features guests doing the work to enlighten, deconstruct and power up in their own magical ways.
We're going to be having conversations around the power of healing, transformation, well-being and creativity, and how they feed our personal and collective evolution, how they help us power up. Hello PowerUp podcast listeners. Today we are joined by Safiya Kamaria Kinshasa, who in her own words is a powerful and passionate choreo poet who is just getting started. Her pronouns are she, her, and she's a British-born Barbadian raised choreo poet and PhD student at the University of Leeds in Cultural Studies. Her interdisciplinary art braids dance and poetry on the page and stage. Safiya is an Obsidian Foundation Fellow and an Apples and Snakes Jerwood Arts Poetry and Performance recipient. Her work has appeared in a variety of journals, including Poetry London, Poetry Review, and Wasafiri. Safiya is also a national and international spoken word champion and came third place in the London Magazine Poetry Prize 2022. Her debut poetry collection, Cane, Corn and Gully, by Outspoken Press, arrived in November 2022, and it is so beautiful. Just the cover alone, if you haven't seen it, immediately go and purchase one and then dive in. Safiya and I actually met quite a long time ago. We were trying to remember how many years back it was at the beginning of this. We couldn't quite remember, but it was on a model. We were models for a course for hair and makeup on darker skin and afro hair that was for Bectu, I think, and it was led by I forget her name, and she's amazing. I'm going to put her in the show notes. So we met a long time ago, and we've stayed connected since. And it's just so wonderful now to be sitting down and chatting with you, Safiya, and inviting you on the show. And we're so happy that you said yes. And we can't wait to get into the power of language with you today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be talking to you wonderful people about my work. So yes.
Thank you, Safiya. And yeah, it's so exciting. Even the little pre-chat we've had, I'm like, yes to the power and yes to the passion of what you do. You're so inspiring. And we would love to just hear a bit about what a choreo poet is for you and a little bit about that journey to becoming, or was it something you were born with? Have you always been a choreo poet? How has that journey been so far?
Okay, so I think, first of all, answering the first question, defining what a choreo poet is or what I believe it to be. So in this country, so we are currently in England, when you go to a spoken word event or an open mic, you will see people standing on the stage. The stages are sometimes very big. And as someone who started, I started in dance, not poetry. So I started quite late, probably 14. If I see a stage, I like to move in it, right? You go to a spoken word event, you see poets getting up, and they are still. They are not moving their bodies, and it traumatized me. I grew up in a country where we move, yes. So I was traumatized, and so when I first started doing poetry, spoken word, and I would I thought, okay, well, let me, try and conform, which is a disgusting word.
Yeah.
You know, try and be like these other people. I felt immediately uncomfortable. I mean, I started in an unconventional way, but it didn't. Something was off, and I could feel that. um I like movement. I like watching people use their bodies, because to me, that is the truth. People lie. We lie all the time. You ask somebody how you are doing, and people say I'm fine, but then their bodies will seize up, their shoulders will go up, and I'm thinking, oh, you're not fine, you're lying, everybody lies. So I said to myself that from now on, very early, in my career, as an amateur, I am going to move on the stage. I'm going to be as expressive as possible, and I'm going to use those movements to determine how I write. And this then encouraged me to start developing a technique where I realize that the poem is never done. And every time I have a reaction to a stimulus, I look at, I figure out, okay, the embodiment. What is happening? How am I breathing? How are my arms moving? How are my legs clenching? How are they? How am I flexing?
Mm,
And what does that
yeah.
look like on the page? What does that say? And it's constant. So it's call and response between the words and the dance, and it's constant, 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 constant. So yeah, so that's how I started creating my work. And I always saw poetry. So when we have sonnets, couplets, haikus, I saw that as choreography. That is
Mm,
choreography. You've got rhythm,
yeah,
you've got meter, it's
absolutely.
choreography. So I said, all right, this is very obvious to me. I start telling people about my ideas, and of course, people are saying, oh, this is very complicated, it's very weird. And I say, no, 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 no. It's not weird. It's not complicated. It's not new. It's actually old. People have been doing this long, 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 long for a long time. And Maya Angelou was a dancer. That Harlem Renaissance poets were dancers. This usually why their poetry was so good, and people have kind
Right.
of missed this. And I also think that if we're going to talk about, just use that big word, decolonization, we should be thinking more about these techniques which are ancient. But yeah, so lo and behold, I come on stage and I start dancing and I start doing my poetry at the same time, and people are looking at me like I'm some people are looking at me like I'm crazy, some people are looking at me like I'm just trying to be quirky, and I'm explaining to people that, no, this is more normal than what you're doing. It's not
Mhm.
normal to talk in a passionate way and to be still. That don't make no sense. So I am right. Everybody else is wrong. There we go.
Yeah.
End of discussion.
End of the
Done.
story.
End of discussion. Correct.
You love it. Thank you for sharing. That feels like that the greats were poets and dancers. For me, I'm just like, yes, this is the truth. And I see it evidenced in kind of my circles now. But yeah, definitely kind of looking backwards, I just think there's such powerful ways to express and such powerful languages to create revolution and to create change as well.
Yeah, agree with that. And Safiya, you released your wonderful debut poetry collection, Cane, Corn and Gully,
Yes.
in November last year.
Yeah.
We wondered, one, could you maybe share a poem from it with us?
Mhm.
And for those who haven't read it yet or looked inside it, can you maybe explain the way you've chosen to structure it?
Yeah, sure. So okay. So with my okay, so I've already said that, like, so poetry and dance, like putting them together, that's nothing new. That's been done, that's been a thing hundreds, thousands of years. But the way in which I put the two together on the page and the stage is new. So um so we have something called Laban notation, which is graphic notation for dance. So like you have a musical score for music, you have a musical score, you also have dance scores too. So I said, okay, I'm going to basically use dance notation to keep documenting the movements that I'm doing. And when I first started researching this book, I was reading from the from notes of the overseers, the slave traders, and the colonialists. So basically, it was firsthand narratives, right? Now, slavery is a lot worse than anyone thinks it is, because, of course, in history books, we just have, paraphrasing, and we just have overarching stories. But when you're reading firsthand, you are reading the emotions, you are reading the basically a man talking about how many women he raped and then laughing about it. Yeah, so it is more traumatic. So I was deeply traumatized. I was deeply I could feel I was waking up with panic sweats, panic attacks, and and I talk about that in the book. But then one thing I saw through these notes is was descriptions, because these people were obsessed with our bodies. They were obsessed. So they would write down detailed descriptions of our bodies. And I said, oh my gosh, what they've done is they've written language. Because I was constantly looking for our speech, but they didn't realize that by writing down the movements, detailed descriptions of our movements and our dances, they were writing down our speech. If you note Black dance, you are noting prayer, you are noting song, you are noting conversation, you are noting rebellion, you're noting all of those things. Because even though, some people look at our dances and they will say, okay, it's just entertainment. It's not entertainment. It's a whole complex system of language, right? So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to gather as many choreographies. I only have so much room in this book, but I'm going to gather as many choreographies of enslaved women dancing in Barbados or on their way to Barbados. I'm going to document them, going to write poems about them. And I'm going to write the first book that has notation of enslaved people. So that's what I did. Thank you. And then I had several rules. First rule, because I only have so much room in the book. First rule, the dances must be dances that are performed today. So dances that are still still can be contextualized today. So if you have a dance in the 1600s, there is a version that has been performed in a club, in a church, etc., etc. Second rule, time is not linear. So in dance notation, all notation is on a straight line. So like musical notation is horizontal, dance notation is vertical. So what I did was I converged the line. I made circles. Everything is circular. Everything is in motion. Everything is different. So I completely changed the way we see notation.
Let me just drop in the power of circles with Thomas Tallowa Presto. We're just going to link you back to that, listener. So after you've listened to this with the amazing Safiya, you're going to go and listen to the power of circles with Thomas Tallowa Presto.
Yes.
Because what Safiya is saying here connects so well with what Thomas speaks to in dance and circles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There we go. Well, see, so you literally, so dancers of the African diaspora, you will hear, I love it because you will hear similar things. You will hear all of these stories kind of coming together, and there you go. So yes, so I did not make the dances linear. A lot of purists, dance purists were quite, had a lot to say about my work. But I had to, kind of speak back and say, well, if we look at, so the original book, which talks about dance notation, the original book, it actually describes Afrocentric movement as grotesque. So, yeah, the fourth edition is the edition that is in libraries right now. The first edition actually says ballet, pure, beautiful, winding your hips, disgusting. It says the word grotesque. I have the original. Everyone can come for me now, come for me. It says it from the get-go. Laba notation was already declaring what was elegant and what was ugly. Yeah, it was written. It was written
right, and what was peripheral.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So right, I put it in a circle. Whatever. Want to come for me? Come. Cool. Third rule. The word black is not mentioned in the collection because, if we have any other writer in the world, any fiction, anytime a person of ethnicity, an ethnic person is mentioned, they mention because we have to assume everybody is white. No, in my collection, we assume everybody is black. Black is in Barbados. Black is the dominant feature. If white was to ask black what its name was, black wouldn't say I am black. It would say I'm beautiful. It wouldn't have said black. White called black black. So I ain't even gonna
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love that. I love those choices. I love
Yeah.
those rules.
Thank you. Cool. So with that said, let me see. Okay. And last rule, it's still creativity. I've already talked about time. I believe that when we are talking about, so Maya Angelou said it best, it's not about the words, it's about feeling. So sometimes strange things are going to happen in the book. And it is what it is. I think in my collection, you'll see that an Afro comb is choreographing. You'll see that a tree is choreographing. The word dance is of course not mentioned in the book because everything is a dance. If you watch the way a Barbadian woman washes clothes, she is dancing. It is all dance. So the word dance isn't actually mentioned because everything is a dance.
Amazing.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
about people. This is about okay, so the poem I'm going to read for you is, let me see. I'll do Speightstown is such a darling place. And this poem first takes place in 1815. Miss Violet meets the same man with a new face nightly. On the first night, she was taller. 59,808 nights later, she wore ganja smoke and malt. When she tightened her biceps around this man's neck, he asked her to stay the night. They played battleship to the cliffs of Janet Kay's voice, never expecting to find each other. Cacophony in this place begins with a liquor bottle. Its chin splits like a seahorse in labor. The bottle enjoys being a sacrifice to pent-up ire. First, it sees itself in smashed looking glasses, then decides it has a future multiplying. This is how the bottle became a cure for alone, splitting itself into a street. Now, no town can survive without peace and calamity in its jaw. 579 nights after her escape, here, a rum bottle gouged on a seaman's nose. Its skeleton lay on his chest and unbuckled his belt. After, the seaman left the carnage for another. This was when he first met Miss Violet, his lips in pieces. Her corset asked to hear his busted tune, but when he lifted her petticoat, he heard a worthier shanty, indigo poisoning an overseer's fish stew.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. There was a line in there that just completely Ella saw my reaction.
Yeah,
It just
it was like full body bliss at word bliss.
Thank
oh
you.
my gosh. Thank you so much.
I so want to see you performing live as well.
Thank
I
you.
just can feel in every bit of my body that I'm going to feel it in every bit of my body.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. It has to be
Yeah.
the dancers.
Mm.
Yes.
And listeners, like if that Courier poem washed over you as it did us, you know what to do. You need to get this book. And yeah, I just have this sense of like, I don't have it yet, but I will very soon, of the layout and this journey that you're taking us on that is so forward thinking whilst reflecting and healing backwards and forwards on a constant. And I just can't wait to turn the pages.
Thank you. Yes. No, I'm so glad to hear that. And I think that's why I wanted to perform or read that piece because it jumps so much back and forward in time. And I think it's one of those poems that I would like for people to kind of sit down with, because history, when, like I said, when we're constantly dancing, our history is constantly being repeated and moving forward. Like, we really are time travelers when we're dancing. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to relate, for sure.
Yeah, your whole book is an archive, is a historical archive, as well as a forward thinking
Yes.
piece. And it's also like this wonderful tribute to, your Barbadian ancestors,
Yeah.
to her, to the country itself. I love that
Mhm.
it looks through that lens specifically as well, because I haven't personally um, witnessed or heard of something recently that has done that. And I think you have such a unique way of pulling it all together as well. And there's something that's obviously so present and contemporary about you as well, which people can really like latch onto. So it's just such an incredible combination of mightiness in it,
Thank
and
you.
it's so, I feel like there's an urgency in it, like the time is now, the time is now for this to be absorbed, to be read, to be felt. Time is now to write it, to share it, to dance it. So yeah, as Ella said, if you don't have it, then get it and get into it. And where can we see you? Where can we see you perform? Do you have anything on the horizon? And you may not have, but or you might have some ideas about what you want to do at some
Or if
point.
not, let's create it together.
Yes,
Sure.
yes, yes.
I will be. There are some performances actually happening overseas, more so than the UK. I will be in. Let me think. I will be in Edinburgh soon, but I'm looking at, yeah. So basically, America and Trinidad at some point soon. So yes, being drawn outwards for the tour in England,
I
for sure.
mean, Leeds are very lucky to have you. So I think we should get some things set up in Leeds as well. Because
I think so too. I
right,
do.
Yes, and I
Absolutely.
would definitely travel up for that.
yes,
So Safiya's
Yay.
in Leeds at the moment because, as we mentioned at the beginning, she's also doing a PhD at the moment. Leeds is Ella and I's, well, I would say it's my second city. Ella, where would it be in your like cities?
1.5.
1.5.
My
Wow.
1.5 city, I don't know. Yeah, how do I decide?
Yeah, it's interwoven,
Yeah,
interweaving.
yeah,
So yeah, we both have like a lot of love for Leeds, and Ella has roots there as well, history there, family roots there. So um, Leeds is it. Yeah, we're
yeah,
totally. Well, let's make it happen.
yeah. Let's make it happen. And I just want to just celebrate you as well because you were recently nominated for the Barbados Guinan Awards, the
Yes.
2023 Book of the Year, and the Rathbones Folio Prize.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you just tell us a bit about the significance of that for you?
I'm honestly, because like the announcements came within a week of each other, so I was literally, I've spent the week crying actually.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I remember like just being told like how ambitious when I first like spoke on my plans for this book. I remember being told, how ambitious it was, and I remember, like kind of like various people saying, you could just do something smaller for your first. And I said, no, I think this is the thing about when people are kind of, it's almost like sometimes when your ambition is so great, you have to remember not to be crushed by the weight of your own ambition. You have to allow yourself to grow with that rather than, um, falling under that. And I think that for me, this journey has been it's been rocky, and it's been a lot of me like kind of lifting myself up. But luckily, I've had amazing publishers. I believe in the God of Israel, so I'm thankful for the God of Israel. Like I'm very spiritual, and so and I was one of those young people. So I'm also autistic, And I'm one of those people who was told from a young age, you're never. I was actually told I was never going to become a writer, right? So to me,
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, I was never going to become a writer. So to me, it was like it felt like I'm being heard and I'm being seen, and people are seeing like what I can do, and
Yes.
I'm making a difference. Like my only goal was literally I just wanted people to see my people in the most beautiful light. Like we kept moving, and if the notation, even in this book, if you're looking at it and you're thinking I don't understand it, all you need to do is just look left, right. There's always a two-step at the heart of every movement, and that's symbolic that we kept going. There will always be a two-step in all the choreography, and that's just to show that I mean, some of these women, I mean, it will say some of these women, they're being whipped. There's one woman, she's whipped several times, and she's got her baby. She's literally got her baby on her back, and she's been whipped from the front, and she gets up and she keeps moving. And to me, that right there
Wow.
that's it. Just a two-step. That two-step alone is one of the most
Yes.
powerful
Woo.
moments in the
Just
whole collection. We don't need a choreography. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So, and I'm like, that's all I want people to see. So when people say, okay, you're feisty, you're this, you're that, black women are this, like, show some damn respect, right?
Yeah. Damn
That's it.
right.
Yeah.
Oof, that's actually brought like a full-on goosebump to both my arms and a little tear to my eye of that image. And I'm so glad that you've written this book.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you didn't listen to those people who have their little thing to say, and you were like, I know this is in my heart and this needs to be
Yeah.
shared.
Yeah.
And yeah, just thank you for the world, for being you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm honestly, I'm just happy that we have a book where we have women just step in.
Mm.
Just that's all we have. And
Oof.
yeah,
The power of language is a
Yeah.
two-step.
it's a two-step. That's it.
In it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Safiya, thank you so much.
All it was a two-step.
Thank you for listening. You can connect to us and our guests via the links in each episode's show notes. Before you go, we invite you to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the goodness to come. And if you enjoyed today, perhaps tell a friend to tell a friend. We are always grateful for you, our listeners, for our fabulous guests, and to everyone who has contributed to and been a part of our journey here.
Our music is by Tomo Carter. Everything else is brought to you by us, the PowerUp Power Team.
I'm Mesma.
I am Amma Rouge, and we are PowerUp Podcast.